Welcome back to MotionPic Recap. Today we're going to recap the adventure, drama, romance and comedy movie titled, Casanova. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. An old man says he's tired, but that there's one story he hasn't put down, the one about Francesca, but which isn't really his to tell really. Many years earlier, a woman tells her old mother she doesn't know how long she'll be away, having found a man. Her mother says she's a whore, but she says she's not but an actress, and her mother remarks there's no difference. She then tells her son Giacomo Casanova she loves him very much and promises she'll return for him one day. Giacomo's grandmother later explains to Casanova that the lust for love is in the family's blood. Many years later, Casanova is seen with various different women, one of whose husband returns home in their act. One day in Venice, a street theater tells the story of Casanova making love to a woman when her husband returns home. One guy tells him he knows Casanova, and it's just like him. Some time later, Casanova is talking to a nun called Beatrice, and she asks how she can know he's really Casanova. Next, she's screaming yes, yes, when suddenly another woman knocks the door saying the Inquisition is there looking for Casanova. He quickly leaves, getting a kiss, and another nun gives him one of his clothing. He runs from the Inquisition, out on a roof. They find him and start following him across the roofs. He jumps to a window which the others won't. Casanova enters a room where a man says women serve only to bring men down to their earthly appetites and how women should never be admitted to set a foot in this university. Suddenly his opponent Dr. Giordano of Padua takes off the wig, saying it's too late, and asks to demonstrate how women could rise up to heaven if they were not held down by men whose heads are full of sand, like this small vessel. Men in the audience are fascinated by what they see. She adds that they should read the words of the philosopher Bernardo Guardi, who thinks women should be educated, and has more understanding of women than any man in this room, saying Guardi probably even have better luck with them in bed too. Men in the hall become disturbed, and suddenly the Inquisition enters, and Casanova starts running to the stage, jumping to it, but is caught and brought away. Some time later, Sister Beatrice tells a man called D'Alfonso that Casanova bewitched her and that she didn't know what was happening. D'Alfonso says he is charged with debauchery, heresy and fornication with a novice, for which he'll be hanged tomorrow at dawn, saying none of his friends in high places will be able to save him this time. At that same moment, the Doge of Venice, the prince, walks in, asking to talk to D'Alfonso, asking if he knows who Sister Beatrice is. Having no idea, the Doge tells D'Alfonso she's Cardinal Lopresti's mistress-in-waiting, who entrusted him to safeguard her virginity. The Doge asks who is going to get the blame for dragging her into the Casanova affair, and D'Alfonso asks nervously if it's him. He then turns around, telling Casanova it's another case of mistaken identity and that he's free to go. Next up, the Doge tells Casanova he is his friend, but that he is being threatened by Rome himself, telling Casanova he'll have to expel him from Venice. Casanova says he can't leave because he's waiting for someone. The Doge tells him he'll have to find a wife then, which will protect him. Next, Casanova comes home, telling his servant Lupo Salvatore he's getting married, and they'll have to go shopping. They watch women in Venice, and Lupo proposes a contessa, but Casanova rejects her, saying she snores, and Lupo suddenly remembers. Suddenly Casanova says he's had a vision. Meanwhile somewhere else, the woman from the university called Francesca Bruni tells her brother Giovanni that virgin will never look his way if he doesn't make himself known. Their mother Andrea walks in, telling Francesca the whole town's talking about her and how she behaved arrogantly at the university. Giovanni defends her, saying she's not arrogant, but angry at how those men pretend to be superior, which is falsely seen as arrogance. Andrea then switches subject, telling Francesca this is an important week, and Giovanni jokes teasingly that he's looking forward to becoming rich again when Francesca marries this unknown rich man. Francesca says she doesn't want to marry him, to which Andrea replies she has no choice. As Andrea leaves, Giovanni tells Francesca it's obvious she already has a secret lover, considering how beautiful she is. He walks back to the window, and suddenly sees Casanova and Lupo. Next, Casanova is talking with Victoria's father, and the father tells Casanova that Victoria is a virgin. Victoria suddenly appears, tripping. She then tells her father she wants Casanova, and will never be satisfied without him. Giovanni sees Casanova and Lupo leave. He runs up to them, telling them Victoria is his fiancée. Casanova says she never mentioned that, and Giovanni explains he just hasn't asked her yet. Giovanni slaps him, challenging him to a duel. Casanova declines, saying that he who gets slapped can insist on his right. Suddenly Lupo slaps Giovanni, and Giovanni immediately says he insists on his right, asking who he will have the honor to be killing. Casanova answers that the name is Lupo, and as Giovanni runs back home, Casanova tells Lupo that if he slaps him, he'll fight him. Next, Francesca sees her brother trying his best practicing fencing, but is not very good. Meanwhile, Lupo practices too, but struggles too, and eventually Casanova says he can pretend to be Lupo then. Next up, Francesca's and Giovanni's old servant explains the terms of the duel for them all, saying first blood ends the duel. Without warning and before anyone's ready, Casanova is attacked. His opponent is a very skilled fencer, but a minute into the fight, Casanova makes a good move. He backs up, but is attacked again. The fight continues, and Casanova loses his sword, which Lupo picks up and gives him. Lupo is pushed into the opponent, noticing something is wrong, yelling to his master they are tricked by the old switch game. Casanova reveals his opponent, asking who she is, and she replies she's Francesca Bruni, saying she didn't want to see her brother killed. Later, thinking Casanova is named Lupo, Francesca says it was all a case of mistaken identity, because Giovanni thought Victoria was going to marry him, but as is now known all over Venice, Victoria is actually going to marry the infamous rake Casanova. She asks if he knows Casanova, and he replies he does, after which she says there must be something deeply wrong with such a man, perhaps that he is missing something in his life, like true love. Still pretending to be Lupo Salvatore, Casanova tries to defend his name, but she says she won't debate him if he takes the side of a man whose idea of love demands a female sacrifice every day, adding she has no sympathy for women either, who think no better of themselves than to be his playthings. Francesca says Casanova's idea of love is in fact self-love, and self-love is self-doubt. Casanova comments that was well said, and Francesca replies it's Bernardo Guardi's words, remarking he should read his books. They bid each other goodbye, and as she's left, he repeats Francesca Bruni's name for himself. Later, Casanova tells Lupo he's made a terrible mistake and says he has to find her. Spying, Casanova hears Andrea yelling to Francesca her fiancé is arriving tomorrow. Casanova is disheartened hearing she has a fiancé, but Lupo reminds him he has one too. Seeing Giovanni causing a mess, Casanova runs up helping, and Giovanni introduces him to his mother as Lupo Salvatore. Giovanni soon afterwards dispiritedly talks out loud, saying Victoria is in love with Casanova. Casanova tells him he'll have to beat Casanova at his own game then, explaining that misery and moping around is not attractive, that the rule is he'll have to be worth loving if he wants to be loved. He then asks if Francesca is happy with her fiancé, and Giovanni answers she's not and that she's never met him, but that she has a secret lover who she sneaks off to often. Casanova sees Francesca leaving, and he and Lupo start following her in a gondola. They follow her to a house, and Lupo exclaims that secret lover's gonna bang her to pieces. Meanwhile, D'Alfonso has received 127 complaints against Casanova, and a co-worker remarks there are suspicions that Casanova enjoys the protection of this office, and D'Alfonso remarks that if there's either Casanova's neck or theirs, it better be Casanova's. Casanova and Lupo see Francesca leaving, after which they enter the house. They discover a sleeping man, and find out the man is Bernardo Guardi. Casanova reads a paragraph in his new book that says if a man wants a woman to love him, he only has to say I have too long dominated the conversation, what are your thoughts on the matter? That evening, Andrea tells Francesca it's her duty to marry her rich fiancé since they're deep in debt after her father died. Francesca asks what about love, and Andrea replies love is something else. The morning arrives, and Francesca is in a church. Suddenly, Casanova appears, saying he also comes here to make confession, asking what she came to confess. She answers she came to prepare her soul for marriage, and leaves. He follows and remarks that to be bartered in marriage is no small thing, especially for a woman of independent mind. She remarks that her brother talks too much. He then talks in length about his thoughts on love, and she seems impressed by them. But then he utters the words, I have too long dominated the conversation, what are your thoughts on the matter? And she looks at him, asking what he said, and then leaves hastily. She goes to Bernardo Guardi, asking if he showed anyone her work. He tells her he didn't, that he's indebted to her family for what her father did for him, and just took the script to the book printing company as she asked. Later, Lupo tells Casanova he found out Francesca's fiancé is called Paprizio, and is very rich, having built an empire selling lard. Casanova gets an idea and asks Lupo to bring out his second best suit. In the harbor, Paprizio arrives. Casanova walks up to him, saying the family of his fiancé sent him to lead him to where he'll stay. They eventually get to Casanova's own estate, and Casanova says they bought this palazzo for 1,600 lire, just for him, and Paprizio hands over 1,600 lire to them. Meanwhile in D'Alfonso's office, a Bishop Pucci arrives with men from the Inquisition, clearing the office, and then tells D'Alfonso that the Pope is very disappointed with their progress of suppressing heresy, and has reassigned him and his entire staff to open a mission among the natives in the equatorial region. Bishop Pucci reads D'Alfonso's notes about Casanova and how he met Paprizio in the harbor, and led Paprizio to his house. But having no idea what it means, they prepare to make their own investigation. While Paprizio is taking a bath, Casanova finds a book among his things written by Bernardo Guardi, with an inscription from Francesca. Suddenly, Paprizio's servant arrives, saying he found the Bruni family's estate, who invites him for tea. Later, Lupo tells Casanova he's got an appointment with the publisher soon, and hearing it, Paprizio asks if he's a writer. Lupo explains his master writes about love and pleasing women under the name Bernardo Guardi. Casanova pretends to get angry at him for saying his name, and Paprizio gets really excited, having Guardi as his idol. Casanova says it's his nom de plume, making Paprizio swear not to tell anyone. Next, Paprizio says he's insecure about his big body. Casanova tells him that if Francesca loves him as he is, he has no problems. Paprizio says she's never seen him, and Casanova explains he's written a book that's not out yet that explains how to transform the outer man, saying that if he wants to change his appearance, it will take some time. Paprizio says he will do anything to be transformed. Next, Casanova arrives at the Bruni's estate, saying his servant said they invited him for tea. Francesca says they aren't having tea and asks their servant to lead Lupo Salvatore out. Casanova excuses himself and tells them his name isn't really Lupo, but Paprizio, her fortunate fiancé, and she's shocked. Francesca is suspicious, but he explains he wanted to find out whether his fiancé wasn't marrying for money, but love, which is why he arrived there early under another name. Andrea remarks she thought he'd be fatter, commenting she loves big men, like Francesca's father was. But Francesca still doubts he's Paprizio, so Casanova picks out the book he found among Paprizio's things, with the inscription, "To Paprizio from Francesca, with my hopes," showing her. With that book, Francesca believes he's actually Paprizio. Casanova says that he only desires her to come to love him, and if she cannot, he'll release her from their engagement. Andrea quickly says there isn't any lack of love. Suddenly, Bishop Pucci appears, telling Andrea he had to visit them since her husband, the late ambassador, was so regarded by the Holy See. He's introduced to Paprizio and Francesca, after which Francesca asks why the Pope's most feared inquisitor is in Venice. Bishop Pucci says he's there to stop fornication and heresy, saying his men for example are searching the streets right now for the author Bernardo Guardi, who's committed heresy. Francesca leaves quickly. Casanova quickly runs after her to ask her to the carnival ball, and she accepts. She sees Bernardo Guardi being brought away and runs to the publisher, saying they must stop selling Bernardo Guardi's book since the Inquisition is out for blood, but they refuse. Casanova returns to his estate, where Lupo is making things up to trick Paprizio into thinking he's getting thinner. Paprizio asks if Francesca accepted his excuse why he couldn't come for tea, and Casanova says she did. Paprizio then remarks he promised Francesca to take her to the carnival ball tonight, but that he needs more time to get thinner, asking Casanova to help him take care of it too, which he agrees to and leaves. Once outside, he's taken by Bishop Pucci's men. In D'Alfonso's office, Pucci watches as his assistant is torturing Bernardo Guardi to admit he's the author. Bishop Pucci then starts talking to the man he believes is Paprizio, saying he read Casanova invited him to his house, and asks him to help them stop this fornicator Casanova, saying he'll be the sole deliverer of lard to the Vatican in exchange. He replies that Casanova left the city for 2 days, but that he will deliver Casanova to them when he gets back, as sure as his name is Paprizio. Suddenly, Bishop Pucci's assistant enters, saying Bernardo Guardi is not the author since he can't read or write, and that someone is using his name as a nom de plume. Casanova hears it all, running to Lupo happily, saying Francesca has no secret lover. Next up, the carnival is beginning. Giovanni sees Victoria, who's secretly leaving for the ball, after which he sees another lady who notices him. At the carnival, the Doge welcomes Francesca and Paprizio to the ball. They meet Andrea, after which she and Francesca start dancing with 2 men that ask them for a dance. A man walks up to Casanova, saying his fiancée Victoria is waiting for him at the entrance. Somewhere else, Giovanni is led into a room, where the woman tells him not to worry, that he's not her first virgin. At the ball, Bishop Pucci sees Victoria escorted by Paprizio, saying something is not right, that they should go check Casanova's estate. The Doge welcomes Casanova and Victoria, being happy his friend has finally found a woman to marry. Soon after, as Casanova asks her to sit down at a table, Victoria sees her father searching for her, and hides. Confused she's gone, Casanova walks back to the table, and Victoria forces him down, starting to give him a massage. Suddenly Andrea and Francesca find him and sit down, and immediately after them, Victoria's father appears, sitting down as well, saying he's trying to find Victoria. Continuing getting massage, Casanova tries his best to avoid the others saying any of his names he goes under, creating a weird conversation. Suddenly, Francesca says someone is under the table, and as they try to look, a pig runs out. Bishop Pucci arrives at Casanova's estate, and Lupo jumps out the window. Pucci thinks he's found Casanova and remarks he has a hard time believing this is what women want. Next, Paprizio and his servant are tortured when the servant brings out a paper showing who they think is Casanova is actually Paprizio. They then ask him whose house he stayed at, and Paprizio answers it's Bernardo Guardi's. Bishop Pucci and his assistant then remarks that if Bernardo Guardi is a nom de plume, then Bernardo Guardi must be Casanova. Hearing this, Paprizio exclaims Casanova has taken his fiancée to the ball. Soon after, Casanova helps Victoria's father find Victoria to take her home, and meanwhile, Pucci arrives telling the Doge that he's there to arrest Casanova. The Doge says Casanova is about to marry and is under his protection, after which Pucci threatens him, saying his city's freedom dangles from the belt of the Vatican. Suddenly Paprizio also appears, and as he declares his name loudly to the Doge, Andrea hears him. She sees him, and liking big men, she makes eye contact with him, and slowly walks up to him. Paprizio asks who she is, and she says her name is Bruni. He remarks she's more beautiful than he could ever imagine, and she faints, but then quickly clarifies she's his future mother-in-law, and Paprizio gets disappointed. Suddenly, Pucci appears, saying her daughter has been duped by Casanova, and Paprizio has had enough, telling him to stop interfering, and Andrea finds him very attractive. Meanwhile, Casanova finds Francesca, saying he knows no man will ever own her, but hopes to be her defender on her journeys, saying they should start by taking one step closer to heaven. They get to a hot air balloon he's prepared, they drop the bags of sand, and lift off. People see it, and Bishop Pucci exclaims it's witchcraft. His assistant tries to explain it's actually warm air rising, but quickly agrees it's witchcraft. Someone yells it's Casanova with his new fiancée. Hearing this, Bishop Pucci runs to arrest him, and Victoria screams out in jealousy. Andrea suddenly notes it's Francesca up there, and remarks she's never seen her so happy before, ironically saying that's such bad news for him. Paprizio ironically exclaims "Oh calamity," and they both comment jokingly it's disgraceful. Paprizio asks ironically what he will do now, and Andrea becomes very happy. Francesca remarks she's beginning to believe that his heart is true. She asks why he didn't tell her he was her betrothed earlier, asking if he didn't trust her. Casanova replies asking why she didn't tell him she was Bernardo Guardi. Having no idea he knew, she gets a bit worried, but he comforts her by promising to never tell anyone. Casanova expresses he's in love with her, but then she suddenly sees an image of Paprizio. Francesca's trust in him immediately disappears, asking who he really is, and Casanova replies that just like she had reasons to not tell who she was, he had too, finally admitting he's Giacomo Casanova. She remarks he stands for everything she writes against, but Casanova asks if that wasn't the case before she knew him. Francesca says she doesn't know if she knows him at all, extinguishing the fire, causing the balloon to fall. They crash land, and as Casanova helps her up, the Inquisition arrives, and Bishop Pucci announces they'll arrest Casanova for fornication, but above all for hiding behind the name Bernardo Guardi and committing heresy. Francesca starts protesting and is almost about to reveal she's the real Bernardo Guardi when Casanova stops her. He then self-admits he's Bernardo Guardi, and is brought away, and locked up. Shortly after, Lupo sits saddened, picking up the balloon. Meanwhile somewhere else, Giovanni is now pleasing a lot of girls, and a man outside is asking when it's his turn. Later, Francesca is thinking about Casanova when she hears sounds outside, seeing her mother and Paprizio happy together. Suddenly, she gets an idea. Elsewhere, as Victoria is walking, she sees Giovanni among girls, and as he walks up to her, the girls yell to him he'll be a legend among them. He remarks this is embarrassing, having loved her for years, and she asks why he didn't say. Casanova is brought to a courtroom, and is being represented by a Dr. Giordana of Padua. The Doge calls the defense, and Dr. Giordana explains it's a case of mistaken identity, saying Casanova is not Bernardo Guardi, but is protecting someone else who is. Bishop Pucci gets angry and confused. The Doge asks who he is protecting, and Dr. Giordana replies he's protecting the woman who loves him. Casanova again self-admits he's Bernardo Guardi, and Pucci says it's done since he is self-confessed. Dr. Giordana then asks the Doge if self-confessing is all that they require, and the Doge answers he suppose it is. Dr. Giordana says good, taking off her wig, picking up notes, saying she alone has the evidence to show she is the real Bernardo Guardi. Andrea gets scared, and Francesca walks up to Casanova saying she couldn't let him die for her. The Doge yells happily to free the prisoner Casanova, but then Bishop Pucci intervenes, saying they have 127 sworn confessions that Casanova is guilty of fornication, saying there's only one sentence: death to the heretic Bernardo Guardi, and death to the master fornicator Giacomo Casanova. Not long after, the two are brought to the gallows in front of a large crowd. Watching from above is the Doge, and below him is Bishop Pucci asking his assistant when the cardinal is coming. After Casanova and Francesca are ready to be hanged, and they've waited a while, Pucci's assistant says he thinks they no longer can wait for the cardinal, and Pucci says he'll have to do it without him. But then suddenly the cardinal arrives, walking up to Pucci, asking what's going on. Pucci explains they're about to hang Casanova, and the cardinal exclaims what luck, after which he introduces his nurse. He then rises, saying he actually came to say this, and then loudly talks to the people, saying, as they know, today is the Pope's birthday, and in honor of his birthday, His Holiness has decreed a pardon for all those who would be executed on this happy day, yelling to them to free the prisoners. The cardinal tells Bishop Pucci he doesn't seem to share the Pope's happiness on his birthday, but Pucci assures him he does, asking how old the Pope is, of which the cardinal is not sure. As the cardinal leaves, he asks Casanova and Francesca to please join them in their coach, saying they're leaving for his country house. The nurse reveals herself, and it's Casanova's mother, saying she's so sorry she's late, and the cardinal, whose name is Tito, says it's really his fault they're late, telling them he's played cardinals before, and that they came as soon as they heard the news. A boy suddenly yells that the paint is wet on the carriage, which says theater troupe, and then suddenly another carriage appears with the real Cardinal Lopresti. Bishop Pucci yells to arrest them all, and they all begin to run from the guards, trying to escape. In the middle of it, Sister Beatrice yells Casanova's name from the Cardinal Lopresti's carriage. Fabrizio hits a guard, and then jumps into the theater carriage together with Andrea, Giovanni, Victoria and the Brunis' servant. Francesca and Casanova start fighting the guards at the gallows. Lupo jumps up on the carriage as well, after which Francesca and Casanova one after the other jump onto the horses. People cheer as they escape, as well as the Doge. Cardinal Lopresti asks Pucci how things are going for them. Suddenly, they reach a dead end, and have to stop quickly. They leave the carriage, and Fabrizio yells they can escape on his barge by the water, but then suddenly the Inquisition catches up. They all start to fight. Casanova manages to avoid the guards' lunges, and Giovanni takes one of their swords. Fabrizio fights in his own way. Giovanni helps Victoria, after which they continue running and fighting. Francesca has no problem fighting them, and Victoria seems to manage too. While the others run to the ship and board it, Casanova and Giovanni, and their two girls, fight off the last ones. Moments later, Victoria's father stops Victoria, saying she's staying. Fabrizio curses seeing they've no sail, but then Lupo gets an idea. Casanova and Giovanni join them, but Casanova says he'll have to stay, or the Inquisition will never stop following them, and Francesca gets worried. Giovanni quickly proposes he can take his place and name, saying he can be Casanova. Victoria and her father like the idea, wanting a wedding, and Casanova very much likes it too, and so they switch places. Lupo jumps off saying his place is in Venice with Casanova. Casanova tells him to take care of him, and Lupo replies of course master, helping them set sail. The Inquisition arrives, and Pucci yells hysterically to stop them. Casanova throws his staff to Giovanni and waves them goodbye. Giovanni and Lupo run, and Bishop Pucci almost goes berserk. Casanova's mother tells him she told him she'd come back. Francesca talks with the actor Tito, and suddenly she asks him who writes their plays. Mother Casanova and Tito kiss, and in the stern Andrea tells Fabrizio this is lovely, exactly her kind of good weather. And at last, at the bow, Casanova joins his love Francesca. In Venice, Giovanni and Victoria lived happily ever after, just not together. Giovanni rose worthily to the occasion, and added many glorious chapters to the Casanova legend, all while he kept the secret of the true love of the man who was Casanova. The end. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this, and hit the like button to help us out. Until next time, take care.